We're live, so I'd just like to say good morning, everybody, and welcome. Thank you very much for joining us today on the third of the APM South Wales and West of England conferences. My name's Nick Jones, and it's been my honour this last year to chair the organising committee for this event. And live, so I'd just like to say I've got some feedback. Sorry about that. That was a slight technical hitch there. So yeah, as I say, it's been my honour to chair this organising committee for this session. Before I'd like to go any further, I'd like to thank our sponsors for the event, our headline sponsor, Fraser Nash Consultancy, and also our other sponsors, PQ and Turner and Townsend, who've kindly given us their sponsorship to help run the event. This year, we've decided to build on previous themes and have a theme of the project team of the future. We've broken this down into two key aspects and spread these topics across today and tomorrow. Tomorrow, we'll be looking at the people skills and organisational aspects of forming great project teams. But today, our focus will be on technology and what the future may hold and how this will impact all of us and our various project teams. Throughout the day, we'll have lots of fantastic speakers talking about a range of exciting and new topics. However, we've tried to do something a little bit different this year. We've also tried to make it as interactive as possible within this virtual event. So we have a networking break at 11 o'clock and a lunch break at 1:15. The platform is set up for having networking, text chats, or also discussions. So please do take this opportunity to try and get in touch with anybody that you know and that you see in the lobby or the virtual lobby as it comes up. Also, we've got 3 virtual stalls from our sponsors. And these breaks will be an excellent opportunity to visit the stalls and see what these companies have to offer, and also have a chat with some people there that will be virtually manning them as it is required, as they're there. So they can have a chat with you about anything of interest. Also, we've added in a facilitated discussion at the end of today and at the end of tomorrow. This is an attempt for us to actually have a more interactive Q&A session, where this afternoon's will be facilitated by Fraser Nash and tomorrow's by PQ. Please think about questions throughout the day, and if you don't get a chance to ask the speaker directly, this will be your chance to have a thoughts, questions, and we can have a discussion, hopefully, with everybody on the call. So I do encourage you to come and join this after lunch today and after lunch tomorrow, if it's all possible. And please do join in the discussion. We'll get out of it whatever we put into it, whatever you guys put into it. So that's a little bit about the day. And without further ado, I think I'd like to hand over to our keynote speaker, Debbie Lewis, who's the current chair of the APM and will kick off our conference for us. Thank you very much to Debbie for giving up her time to present today. If you have any questions during Debbie's speech, do type them into the side and I'll try and get round to asking them to her at the end. But as I say, if you don't, we can use this afternoon session to do that. So without further ado, over to you, Debbie.
Thank you very much, Nick, and good morning, everyone.
Oh, Debbie, I think you're on mute.
No. Has that worked? I'm not on.
Sorry, Debbie, you're good. Sorry.
Is that okay? Good. Okay. Moment of panic over with. So thanks, Nick. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the South Wales and West of England branch conference, as you just heard, the title of which is the Project Team of the Future. You've also just heard that my name's Debbie Lewis, and I'm chair of the Board of Trustees of APM, and it's my absolute honour to be your first speaker this morning. It's a fascinating agenda today and tomorrow. Nick's just described some of it, where I can see that you've got the opportunity to explore a huge range of different topics pertinent to the theme. I can see you're talking about digitisation, about data and digital tools, the agile mindset, diversity for project success, personal and team performance, and also the power of collaboration and relationships in major infrastructure projects. That comes toward the end of the day tomorrow. And you've got some fantastic speakers to enable all of that and the great discussion, hopefully, that will come as a consequence of it. The context is, of course, the project team, and this morning I'll reflect on what I've learned about being a project leader and a project team member in what has been a 34-year career in telecommunications, and also reflect on what I think the future may look like for both of those roles. There's quite a lot I want to talk to, so I'll need to talk to each of these things very briefly. I want to talk about what the new world as we emerge from COVID requires of project teams. And some of that's very familiar. We have been building and managing and getting great performance from teams for a long, long time, of course. But some of it is also new because of that emergence from COVID. I want to talk about the changing shape of the teams. What do we need to consider in the membership of the team? We're not all cut from the same cloth, and so how do we allow everybody in the team to shine? And also talk about where and how teams work, supported, of course, by technology, and then move us on to thinking about the skills we require in the teams of the future and how we achieve engaged teams through ensuring happy and healthy individuals, and the role that I personally am a very strong advocate of, the role of self-awareness, emotional intelligence, and empathy in achieving that engagement. So as you've just heard, I've set myself quite an ambitious agenda, I think, for probably around 20 minutes. So it's necessarily going to be quite a whistle-stop tour through the topics, all of which you'll be looking at again over the next 2 days. So why do we need to revisit our consideration of the project team? It's because a lot has changed, of course, and it's changed at pace in the last 18 months and will continue to change. In the emerging post-COVID world, many familiar things, I think, are now in sharper focus and are reshaping the way that we perceive, the way we experience, and the way that we behave in our world as people and as project professionals. And the new normal is the much cited label in recognitions that things will perhaps never quite be the same again. There is a new reality, I think. Global economies are planning recovery, but supply chains are suffering. Disinformation is a reality, unfortunately, and our confidence is low, whilst perhaps our suspicion is high sometimes. Perhaps we're also reconsidering some of our long-held beliefs now, such as the need to be efficient, which is often equated to low cost, of course, versus investment in resilience. Our beliefs about cooperation, how we work together, either on a global or a national level, and previous norms with regard to our use of technology, where we work, and also our understanding of diversity and inequalities. It's a very, very heady mix. We have indeed, of course, we're all experiencing new ways of working and collaborating and new ways of learning. Fast-paced change in technology and the tools that support our work in our teams, and different expectations from different generations, a sub-theme I'd like to talk to in a moment. And all of this is going on whilst project management as an enabler of recovery has a new, very bright spotlight on it. So, what will this require of project teams? Certainly that they are able to respond quickly to new challenges, solve highly complex problems effectively, perhaps at new scales, and innovate through collaboration. But maybe that's always been the case. More so, I think that they are now teams which are leveraging generational mixes such that everyone is able to give their best, and that this is realized through strong relationship management, a true diversity of perspective around the team table, and it's done with empathy. Again, a topic I'd like to come back to shortly. Let's think briefly about that generational piece. There are Generation X project team members like myself who are historically most familiar with structure, with control, and with hierarchy, perhaps also historically least familiar with technology, although we're catching up, of course, and dare I say it, in some cases, less able to accept change, maybe. Generation Y individuals are in the mix. They want interesting, socially valuable work and careers that deliver high degrees of flexibility and potentially movement between adjacent disciplines. The concept of the Generation X concept of a job for life, perhaps within one organisation, of course, is no longer the norm. This Generation X cohort want perhaps more informal, less hierarchical relationships with their leaders, with their managers, and are really keen to learn and to share on an ongoing basis in new ways. And this is the generation who have grown up with huge technology change, and perhaps they demand to be able to use it to its fullest extent at work and in the teams that they are members of. And now, of course, the emergence of Generation Z into the workplace, a generation who take technology and social media as an absolute given. They're confident, they're ambitious, but they're also significantly more concerned about realities such as the environment and sustainability, about mental health, about their own job prospects, and about the challenges of housing for themselves. If project teams with such varied constituents are to be effective, we need to be able to tap into what motivates and engages everybody in the team. This has, of course, always been the case, but with the generational lens applied, some of the differences, I think, are in more stark contrast. We also know that to be the most effective team, then representation needs to be strong. Representation of the context relevant to your project, as well as diversity of opinion and of perspective. What does this mean for the shape of the teams and where they work? Well, I think teams will be increasingly networks of teams, that the membership of which may ebb and flow. This is required by the complexity and the scale of some of the challenges facing us now and the degree of cooperation that the solutions require. Actually, creating teams will be an important skill, and those in the team may have to develop the ability to both lead and follow at different times, dependent on their unique skills and experience at any particular point in time. Technology, of course, plays a major role. It facilitates remote and virtual working, information management, and we do feel like there's information overload more commonly these days, data analytics and intelligent decision-making. The pros and cons of virtual working are a topic of hot debate, and I'm sure you will debate that over the next 2 days. Many organisations are encouraging moves back to the office, and others not. The drivers for a return to the office are often cited as greater collaboration and the intangible benefits of human contact, especially for teams, of course. And the reality is that effective virtual working requires technology investment and common tools, as well as trust and autonomy. Whilst conversely, the power of relationships is at its greatest, I think, when there's a foundation of a non-virtual experience, face-to-face. And relationships, of course, are fundamentally key to effective teams. So I've talked about a new world context and what this requires of project teams, also the implications for the shape of those teams and where they work. Let's now consider what this means for the skills we need in effective teams. And some of these are familiar, perhaps some of them have a new emphasis. I think these skills will now be focused on collaboration and facilitation in virtual, hybrid, and face-to-face environments. Skills of motivation and engagement as tools for retention as important skills become more scarce. Skills in information management and data analytics, and I know you're looking at that today on the agenda, for that intelligent decision-making that I referred to earlier. and what I believe to be one of the differentiators between successful and unsuccessful projects and programs, which is our ability to implement flexible leadership styles and personal adaptability to enable everyone in the team to give their best. I think self-awareness is a precursor of awareness of others in that context to enable inclusion of that full spectrum of perspectives. With finally personal resilience and emotional intelligence to navigate the complexity and the ambiguity. For me to differentiate between the stuff that requires our energy and the stuff that can wait, and to be sensitive to the team's needs in that respect. And so what does this mean for the engagement we experience when we work in teams? We all know that truly engaged teams work more effectively, and retention of individuals is improved with that engagement. And that's about a mix of things, perhaps consideration of a team-based rather than individual reward. Undoubtedly about having a strategic vision and being able to translate that into absolutely clear objectives for everybody in the team, where we all understand why the end benefit is valuable and we can align ourselves to that benefit. Alignment, I think, being achieved when we feel ownership of the goal and it meets the needs of our personal values. And also a team environment where we feel valued and truly understood as people, as individuals. That in turn makes us feel comfortable about ourselves. And that is when the magic of project team effectiveness meets the ambition of happy and mentally healthy people. And of course, empathy is the enabler. I said I'd talk to that earlier. Thinking back over recent events, many of us have experienced perhaps a revision of our view of our own lives. During COVID, we've had time for reflection on what's important to us and how we might want to make change in our lives. We've also experienced, alongside the negative consequences of the virus, perhaps a new empathy for those that we work with. Certainly the children and the pets appearing in the Teams, that's Teams with a capital T, or Zoom meeting video has become commonplace. And seeing the paraphernalia of each other's lives in the background as we work from home has made some of our stakeholders, dare I say it, more human, drawing out the similarities we have with them and enabling greater understanding, and finding us more accommodating of each other in a very positive way. In this new view of our lives, what do we really need now as individuals? Undoubtedly, we need reliable information and the sense of confidence and security that brings. We need community and connections, and they're incredibly important for effective teams. Some people crave travel and social activities, although of course some have welcomed the lack of it, and that's a shout out, an acknowledgement to the slightly more antisocial out there. And perhaps we've taken the opportunity in the last 18 months to reset some form of balance in our own lives in a more tangible way and with a clearer imperative. I talk to these needs of the individual because for me, they're not isolated from our practice as project professionals. They're part of the project team contexts we work within. After all, what is the common element in all of our projects? It's people, their needs and their behaviours. We can build and manage successful teams if we understand the people. So just glancing at the clock, time is limited this morning, so unfortunately I need to move on and start to draw things to a close. I'll do that with a broader question. What does the future hold for our profession? It's a future undoubtedly of some uncertainty and volatility, we know that. It's the reason we're having discussions such as this today and tomorrow. But along with the challenges comes great opportunity for project professionals. Projects are the enablers of so much that the UK and indeed the world is now facing into. global warming, CO2 emissions and sustainability, economic recovery, addressing inequalities, and the latent threat, perhaps, of further surges in the global pandemic, to cite but a few examples. Projects and project teams thread together people, capabilities, and activities to address such challenges and realise the opportunities. They're absolutely key to success in all of those areas. That's why, as project professionals, I believe that we should be confident and we should be bold. We should lead by embracing new insights and new skills and latest practice to underpin success in addressing those opportunities through our profession and through our teams. As you're probably aware, APM is 50 years old next May, and reflection on those 50 years is, of course, going to be appropriate in our celebration. However, I think it's also a time to, I say, face forward, to lead and enable through our project practice. Many of you are the practitioners that will make some of the most important projects of the 21st century successful. It will require you, it will require us to think differently, to think creatively and be adaptable, but also a challenge for you to think creatively about the teams you work within and the teams that you build and the teams that you lead. If I leave you with only one thought from this welcome address, it would be confident in the power of the amazing profession we've chosen and its power to reshape the world we live in. So thank you, everyone. I'd like to finish the welcome address by applauding the South Wales and West of England branch for facilitating this conference and for their insight in bringing such important topics to the agenda. The APM branches and the volunteers within them are an incredibly important asset for the project community, and I can do nothing but congratulate you on the event today and tomorrow. There are, I think, a very small number of minutes for questions, but I'm also very happy to take any via email after the event, so just drop me a note to my APM email address. And if I don't say so in a few minutes, if I don't get the opportunity, then enjoy the rest of the day and tomorrow. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you very much, Debbie. Please do type some questions in as you see. I've got a couple as well to add into the mix, but we've got probably until 10 o'clock, if that's okay with you, Debbie, so 6 to 7 minutes worth of questions and answers. So there is a sort of 15-20 second delay, so please do start typing any questions you have for Debbie, and I will try and get around to as many of them as I can. We've got the first one coming in now. So on the topic of maintaining community, how do you think we can maintain an APM professional community and network moving forward in a hybrid/virtual world? And what do you think the impact has been during COVID?
I think, first of all, to talk to the impact during COVID, from an APM perspective, I think APM has really been an incredibly strong exemplar of how technology has supported our ongoing operations during COVID, despite, of course, all of the challenges. And actually now, as we're emerging from COVID, has actually put APM in an incredibly strong position. The strengths of the operational position and the results that I see as a board member has been above and beyond what we might have anticipated. So that's been incredibly important. There's also been a lot of learning around online qualifications. And I know that our CEO is looking at the learning and the feedback that we've had with regard to that, and will undoubtedly make further improvements and changes as a consequence. I think on a more personal level, there undoubtedly for all of us has been learning from working in a new virtual environment. I talked a moment ago to the new empathy, I think, that has very genuinely been enabled by the virtual experience. It also has had challenges, including the challenges of ensuring that everybody gets an opportunity to contribute in a virtual environment. But very interestingly, I've personally observed in the last 18 months that perhaps actually it has given those individuals who in a non-virtual, in a face-to-face environment, might have felt for whatever reason less able to contribute. Now in a virtual environment, I have seen many of them more actively contribute. And perhaps not having their video on has made that possible for them. Perhaps they have felt somehow safer because of their home working context. But it certainly for me has seen a better diversity of opinion and perspective presented at meetings very often. And of course, there is learning in there for us. I talk to, and we're all very familiar as project practitioners with the power of diversity of contribution in any project team. So what learning can we take from that virtual experience? And my observation that others that felt perhaps previously less empowered to contribute have now felt more empowered. So why has that been, and how perhaps can we embed that in our project practices moving forward? Hopefully that answers the question a little.
Thank you very much. I certainly feel it does. Next question is quite a personal one, but what was the best project team you've ever worked in, Debbie, and why?
Nice one. Of course, I've worked in lots of great project teams, haven't we all, genuinely, over many years in my career. But perversely, I think one of the best teams I have ever worked in was actually one of the most challenging times in my career. It was a new opportunity that I was given, and it was very scary for me to step into it from a number of different perspectives. But I did so. I accepted the challenge, and over the 2-year period of the programme of work, I learned an awful lot about project practice, about stakeholder management, about leadership, and about myself. All very positive learning. And that project was, next time you walk past or drive past a green telecoms cabinet, a BT cabinet in the street, and if you see one of the cabinets that has got an extra add-on pod on the side, which actually doesn't touch the ground, it doesn't have a concrete footprint, it's attached in an elevated fashion to the side of the existing cabinet. It's about a sort of quarter or a third of the size of the concrete bound cabinet. In that extra extension on the side is a technology called G.Fast. And it was a technology many years ago, about 6 years ago when I did this program, that was very untested. But it was a technology that we could see had the potential to offer ultra-fast broadband bandwidths up to 300 megabits per second to customers over their existing piece of copper into their homes without having to replace that copper with fibre. And so this program was about enabling that. But the reason I say it was the best project team I worked within was because it had all those challenges. We didn't know whether the technology worked. We didn't have a capable supplier. We certainly didn't have a business case. We didn't have, international standards in place. And what we had to do was bring together a multidisciplinary team to work together on that, all hugely motivated because they understood the challenges and they understood the benefit to the customers. And additionally, importantly for teams, we had very visible, often very challenging, but very visible senior sponsorship. And all of that mix meant that I felt that I was working on something which was of incredible value to the business, incredible value to the end customer, with motivated others, all highly expert in their individual areas, and equally that I was bringing skills that were valued by others, very relevant and supportive of the end goal of the project team. Several of those points I've mentioned there, I think I probably drew out in my welcome speech. The clarity of goal, the skills, and the understanding of strategy and objectives. So I would say that the G.Fast, ultra-fast broadband project team was the best project team that I've ever worked in.
Thank you very much. I think probably one more quick question. I notice it's just ticking over to 10 o'clock, if that's okay. So, and I know there's a few questions that we're not going to get around to, but like I say, they might be things, as Debbie kindly said, either email her if they're specific, or we can have a chat in our virtual session this afternoon. So the last question is, what do we do to try and define what a PM is and ensure that businesses recognise the qualification and training?
We could do a lot more. If you've read the interview with our new CEO, Adam Bodison, in the Project magazine, you'll understand that this is a particular area that Adam would like to focus on. I think we don't have across all sectors and all relevant stakeholder communities an appropriate understanding of what project management is actually about as a professional discipline and the value that it brings to the economy and to society. So we need much more proactive communications with regard to that, and proactive, I think, more targeted communications with particular stakeholder communities. I think also on the flip side of that, as a professional body, we need to also, I think, open our arms a little bit wider in terms of who we bring into our professional community, what sort of skill sets, what sort of adjacent disciplines are we able to additionally support, as well as what we might label the traditional project manager. Now, that's not about diluting us as a professional body, but it's about recognizing that some of our core skills and capabilities in the project management discipline are actually hugely relevant, and we would be able to support others who might be currently on the sort of periphery of what we describe as project management. So I think more proactive and targeted communications with specific stakeholder communities. And again, I know that's very much on Adam's agenda, and you'll hear more about that in coming months. And I think opening our arms slightly wider as a professional body in terms of who we define as a project professional.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much, Debbie, for giving us your time today. That's a really, really great